Now that we have the cars colored, they are ready to be placed in their initial positions for the animation. The easiest way to do placement for a scene like this is using the top view. We'll open up a new window so we can see how the scene looks through the camera, but we're going to do all our major placement and movement in the top view. I'm going to take a few cars and put them on the other side of the road. These you can always animate going in the opposite direction to add a little more realism to the scene. Just make sure to rotate them 180 degrees so that they face in the opposite direction, and then move them over and leave them on the right hand side of the road. I'll leave most of the cars on the left hand side because this is where our main shot will take place, so this is where you want most of the objects. Keeping an eye on the camera view, we'll position the cars appropriately so that it appears like a busy highway scene. Make sure that each car is clearly visible from the camera. If a car is hidden behind another, then it doesn't add much to the scene and it slows down rendering times. So be sure to position them all accordingly. I'll switch to the camera view and I'll skip a few steps. You'll notice I've also placed cars on the overpass. We'll glue the overpass and those two cars up there to the road surface. You'll see why in a few steps. Now that the vehicles are positioned, I'm going to load an agent, a car, and some exploding glass that I have animated separately. The agent and car were animated just how the bullet time chapter describes it, and the glass was added and animated in the same way that you saw in the glass explosions chapter. There are 4 separate exploding glass objects, one corresponding with each side window in the car. Now, remember how we glued the overpass and the road surface together? This is because, for this scene, it is much easier to animate the road surface moving than trying to animate multiple cars moving all in the same direction. Since the camera and all the other cars in the view are going to stay motionless relative to each other, moving the road surface gives the impression of movement along the highway when viewed from the camera. We'll give it a large movement up to frame 20, then a small movement until frame 70, and then finally another large movement between 70 and 90, just like how we did for the character and the car in the bullet time chapter. Once you've animated all the keyframes, go back to frame 0. Remember, the cars in the overpass also need to be moving along while the overpass itself is moving. Since we glued them together already, we don't have to worry about moving them to ensure that they move with the overpass. All we need to do is move them along the road surface at frames 20, 70, and 90. You'll find that gluing objects like this and then animating them as one saves time when they share a part of the animation, like they do here. Once you've animated both of the cars properly, switch back to the camera view. The final thing you need to do after this is done, since everything is animated, is to move the actual camera itself. The camera roughly follows the movements of the agent, so we're going to ensure that the agent and the other cars are all in the frame at frame 0. At frames 20 and 70, we adjust the camera to ensure that the agent remains at the center of the view, like this. Finally, at frame 90, the camera is moved off to the right, and the agent appears to be flying out of the view. Pressing play, we can preview the animation in wireframe mode. It's kind of hard to tell in wireframe mode where everything is, so it's always good to perform a test render at several keyframes in your animation so you can see what's going on. You have to ensure that everything has turned out just how you expected. If you render the video without doing this, you risk missing small mistakes you hadn't noticed, and it can be annoying when you have to trash a render that took you 5 hours to complete because of a few bad frames.